Welcome to Beyond the Wild podcast, where we go venturing beyond the gear, beyond the subject, beyond the shot, find the heart of wildlife and adventure creative. Beyond the Wild podcast is brought to you by Pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA. Listen in, we share tips and tactics learned from years of journeying into the wild. Your hosts are Jason Loftus, Ron Hayes, and myself, Mark Raycroft. Let's begin another episode of Beyond the Wild. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. Today I'm joined with my esteemed co-host, Jason Loftus. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing really good, really good. Just getting out of the field from the elk rut and trying to get planted back to reality. You know, September's gone now. It's a sad moment. Another September in the books, you know.
That's heavy. I feel it. And saying I flew in last night. I've been gone for a month and just transported home, filled up the laundry machine and hitting reset. But it's nice to be here and opportunity to record another podcast with a special guest today. Lisa Connor, welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you, Jason and Mark. I'm excited to be here.
I quickly want to say Ron wanted to be here. He apologized for not being here, but he had something really important last minute come up at work and he had to go back in. But in the meantime, we have Why Mustang 5 for those that are on Instagram to see some of your work. We'll get into more of it. Why the handle, or what does it mean?
It's kind of, it's kind of a silly handle. I had a friend in high school who drove a yellow 5-liter Mustang. And of course I was in love with this vehicle. So I think that was around the time that Hotmail began. So I thought, well, instead of using my name, I would use Y Mustang 5 as in 5-liter. So that's where it came from. And I've had it for, I'm probably going to age myself, but let's say maybe 20 years now. So, and it's kind of stuck and I haven't changed it. Maybe one day, but
you've had it since you were 9, huh? That's wild.
Yeah, I was going to say she's safe aging herself on this show with us. That's not high risk there. Well, that's cool. That's original. Why not?
Yeah.
Well, I have to say I'm a big fan of your photography. I love your work. I love the close to home component of what you do, what you can find. I think our guests will really appreciate what you show that way. That doesn't require big travel, because honestly, your pictures are so moving, so detailed, so sharp, so well composed. And your macro work is outstanding, and happy to have you on the show. I want to take this off my ear, so I'm going to say, for those on YouTube, I hopped off this jade plant onto my ear, and yes, it's another way to direct people to YouTube. Yes, of course, but I have a koala on my ear as a shout out to my good friends that spent the last week with me, Mark and Sue Jones, that are on a plane back to Australia tonight. And the week before that, a quick shout out to Mike Fahey. Thank you all for coming along. And this koala I actually got as a gift from the university where my daughter graduated, and now it will stop pinching my ear and I can stop being funny. But koalas are awesome. What incredible creatures, but that's way off topic. Back to Lisa. So I guess why don't we start at the beginning, if you don't mind. What got you into photography? When was that? And the progression kind of to where you are today?
Yeah, so it started as a child. I'd been asked that question, and I remember this camera that I got as a kid, and I think it was a Kodak camera, but it used to have the flat disc. It was disc film.
I remember now. You might have me on this. Wide film, disc film. Are you there?
It is a thing.
Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
You do? Okay.
Mhm. Well,
I
it's because
believe you.
I
Yeah.
wasn't savvy enough to ever take like real film from real film cameras, right? I didn't get into it early enough, so I do remember those days with the little click wheel film.
Yes. But I mean, that's when it started as a kid, and then I moved to 110 film and then 35 millimeter. But it was just taking pictures of friends or trees or flowers. And then I got away from it for many years. And in my 20s, I was really envious of people that had these passionate hobbies. So I had tried other things like knitting or crocheting, painting, and then I picked up a camera again. It was a Canon Sure Shot, and I would take it around the neighborhood, taking pictures of the squirrels or scenery. And I really started to fall in love with it again. And because of where I live, we have so many waterfalls. So I went out and bought my first kit lens. It was or kit camera, Nikon D5300, and started going around taking landscape and waterfall photos. I bought some books on how to do HDR and just tried to really teach myself. And then I discovered the birds. So that obsession, followed through. I got a better camera. Yeah, so I would say it's probably been maybe about 8 years that I've 6 or 8 years that I've been trying to get more into it. Just exploring my area, exploring the backyards, the parks around here, because I don't travel a lot. I'm just trying to make the best of, what we have here. So that's kind of where it began a long time ago. But thankfully, we don't have film anymore because you would, take them in to get developed and you'd have to wait the week and find out that your finger was in most of the pictures or, they were blurry.
That's quite a progression, and I think quickly just tell people where you are too. We haven't covered that, I don't think.
Yeah.
Good.
So I'm in Southern Ontario. I'm in the Greater Toronto area, the Golden Horseshoe. I'm in Hamilton. And we are known as the city of waterfalls for the amount of waterfalls that we do have here. So I've had lots of access to those things when I began really taking photography serious.
I didn't know that. I'm 2.5 hours away from you. I didn't know about all the waterfalls.
Yes. Yes.
Really? I know
Yep.
I get the bird migration happening along the shore at Lake Ontario and probably elsewhere through that region too. But um,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's, I mean, just trying to think how to say this. It's fantastic as a young mother that you're able to do this near home, right? It's something that's you're accomplishing and succeeding at with your
Mm-hmm.
work. And again, I encourage people, if you're not already following Lisa, that you should definitely check out her Instagram, and you'll see also on YouTube the visuals, some of the photos as we go along that she has. But so where you're at now, I see that you love birds, but you're also, and we can talk about these separately, but your macro work is top notch. So
Thank
why don't we
you.
cover the
Thank you.
birds? Because I'd like to dive even deeper if we have time into macro stuff that you're working on. So what drew you to birds other than maybe the obvious that birds are amazing and there's so many different colors and species and the
I
migration
think
that
that's
goes
what
through?
it Yeah, sorry to interrupt. I think that's what it was. When my oldest son was born, we would take him out. That was one thing that I never wanted to stop doing was going out and exploring. So we would strap him up and out we went. And just noticing some of the birds that I had in the area that I'd never really noticed before, started taking interest in it, taking photos of them, started learning them, and once I started paying attention to that, it almost became, what can I see next time? Or, you start paying attention, especially on social media, the migration. Um, I have a few birder friends that have given me some really good tips of, certain times in certain, areas. So I really followed that. Yeah. And it just became just, I guess, more or less an obsession of following the birds and trying to get those close images and sharp images of them, watching their behaviors, the different environments that we would see them in. Yeah, so I just fell in love with the birds.
Let me just back up a little bit. I know for me, every time I go and start photographing a new species or something, right, I really get drawn into wanting to learn more about them, learn about their behaviors, learn about their habits, where they like to be at certain times of the year, all that stuff, which is, I'm sure this is where this led. But did you already have a good understanding of that, or did the photography thing take you down that path as well?
I had no idea of any of it. Photography really took me down that road. And as you said, you would find one bird and research it a little bit, pay attention to where you would see them. Especially here in the winter, we have a lot of winter ducks, and I love ducks too. So I started paying attention to their habits and where they like to hide. Some of them out on the lake, some of them would come into the bay, in some of the little back ponds. Yeah, but no, photography has completely led me down this road of discovering the birds and habits.
Yeah, you have quite a variety of the waterfowl on your page, and I think if I remember right, that's what drew me to your page while back. But I love waterfowl too, and just
Yeah.
another type of bird, obviously. But I don't know what it is about the waterfowl for me. But you're right, you have a wide variety of species there that visit through there, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have to mention I don't usually go out with one specific species in mind. Usually I'll just go out and to an area where I have an idea of what will be there. Most of those times when I do go out for a specific species, I won't see them, but I will see something else. So yeah, it's
Right.
very opportunistic, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I love that. I'm very opportunistic as well.
So, what equipment are you using for waterfowl now for
I'm
cameras?
still Yeah, I'm still using my D850. I've had it for 5 years, I think now.
Yeah,
I'm still using that and my 200 to 500 zoom telephoto.
yeah, it's a
Yeah,
great
and
tool.
it's been a great camera. I must say it has been dropped. It's gone for a swim and survived, thankfully.
Wow.
Yeah. The lens didn't survive, but the camera body did. So I'm gonna use it until it dies.
We all had 850s at one point, and I was my kit setup for many years, probably 4 or 5 years. The 850 on the 2 to 500, loved it. It was so hard to part with. It was one of those things that, do you keep it for nostalgia? And it's still great. Don't get me wrong, it is.
Hmm.
Or do you sell it because it's not going to be worth any more 5 years from now, perhaps, than what it is today on a trade-in? But yeah, the sensor, the 850 holds its ground to this day, and the 2 to 5, it's a great combination. Can you tell us the story of how your 850 went swimming?
Yeah,
You
it's
mind?
kind of funny. I had gone out with a fellow photographer friend, and my mission was to photograph some of the waterfalls. Or there was very little water, unfortunately, in this one area, so we kind of trucked down the creek and found a deeper part. Um, so I have a tripod that is not trustworthy. It has a faulty leg, and I don't know why. I don't usually use tripods, but I thought this day I would. And I walked away to grab a leaf and I heard the splash, turned around, and it was underwater. So I grabbed it pretty quick out of there, looked at it. The lens was smashed. But yeah, I just popped the batteries out, memory card, turned it off, and threw it in my bag, and that was it. And I don't think I turned it on again for I think I was supposed to wait the 7 days, but I turned it on after day 6, after being in a bag of rice, and it worked. There was no trouble. Yeah, the mirror was fine. There was no dirt in it. So
Wow.
my sound is a little weird if I ever do any video. There's a bit of muffling I'm finding in the mic, but I don't do it enough for it to really matter. So yeah, it's a
No, we
tank.
can we can rarely use sound, and a little bit of water in the audio is soothing, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
that's a great tip to remind people to try that, right? If there isn't damage, to put it in a bag of rice for a week. And
Oh, I
in
thought
this,
you meant like if you want to have the watery sound in your mic, just go ahead and dunk your camera. I thought that's where you were going.
no,
That's what I
no,
thought too.
no, I'm not recommending that. No, no. Wind the tape back. If your camera gets wet, to put it in a bag of rice for a week as the first
Yeah,
attempt of recovery. And in this case, it worked for you.
it did. It worked. And I was surprised that it did, but it did. Yeah. If it happens again, I'll do the same.
Right. That's the first thing. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And
Wow.
one thing
Well,
I love about the D850, I miss it, and I haven't heard it for a while. And I was out in the field this week, and I was shooting next to a friend of mine, and I heard that very unique shutter, and I turned around and looked. I
Yes.
said, "That's a D850." I heard that. You cannot miss the sound of that shutter. That's I love it. But sorry, little side note.
Oh,
no, there's
it's
no,
true. It's true. The machine gun shutter. Yeah.
yeah. I wish I'd kept mine and the 2 to 5 just to have if a nephew or a niece or somebody comes on a trip kind of thing to have as a kit saying, here you go. This will, you know, that being said, it's still a go-to equipment. I don't mean to knock it down a notch.
Mm.
But switching to mirrorless, it's there was no point carrying both. But the 850 would still be fine if I didn't have mirrorless. So with waterfowl, then that's a spring and fall bonanza, right? With migrations. Do you do much
Yeah.
in the winter? I think there would be because the water is open along there sometimes in early through winter, right?
Yeah. It starts. I think for me, I'll usually start going out. I'm looking now, actually. I shouldn't say November, but they usually start coming back, I think, around this time. November, December, the longtails will be in the harbor or just on the other side of the lift bridge there. The buffleheads will come in. And last winter, it wasn't cold enough, so our harbor didn't freeze, which was good for me. I don't know about the waterfowl, but yeah.
Well, it lets them stay further north if it doesn't freeze, right? They don't necessarily migrate as far south. But so quickly then, tell us. I mean, there's really your macro variety. Is there anything more you want to say about ducks, or can I jump into some of this other stuff?
No, I was going to say that once macro season for me is over, I go to ducks. And then when duck
Oh,
season is over, I go back to macro. And sometimes I'll get the birds in between. So, yes, my beloved macro season has almost come to an end.
well, you mix it in. I mean, this is
Yeah.
August 5th, the hermit thrush. It's a beautiful image. It's so clear and it's such a shallow depth of field and so crisp. So I mean, and then the was a scarlet tanager, right? Right before that, looks like yeah, uh,
Mm.
beautiful. So it's not just waterfowl, but songbirds that you're doing as well. That just, but your macro stuff. So what are you using for equipment for macro? Like, look at there's a fly on July 26th who is the boss here, but the detail on its eyes and the shallow depth of field, the crispness. What are you using? Are you using the same setup for that? You can't be.
No. So I'm using the Sigma 105 2.8 on my D850.
Okay.
I've recently, just the past couple of years, have been playing around with Flash. So I still kind of go in between. I'm not techie by any means. I'm still trying to learn to utilize it properly with the diffuser. Um, so some of my images are with Flash and some of them are. I do believe the fly was with a Flash.
I
But
couldn't
I,
understand.
yeah, I don't stack images mostly because my computer wouldn't handle it. my post processing. I couldn't stack images. I tried one time and it took me about an hour, I think, to combine 3 images. So I've learned to just open that f-stop up. I usually shoot about f8 to or f11 with my flash and hope that I get, as long as I get the eyes sharp, I'm happy. It's tricky. Each insect I find that I try and photograph is different what you're trying to obtain with that depth of field. So it's just all playing around with it. And because all you have to do is go out into your backyard, you can spend so much time, just playing around. But I just love it. I love it. Every time I go, I see something new. And it's kind of like the birds too. If you see an interesting insect, I go home and I, look it up or, research what plants do these like. And then you start to learn, if you want a milkweed beetle, you go to a milkweed plant or, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. My ambush bugs. I love ambush bugs. And they usually you start to learn that the time of month or the summer month where they start appearing and then when they disappear. So yes.
I'm just holding up one of the ambush
Yeah.
bugs posts.
They're so much fun. And they're fun too because they don't move around very much. So they will kind of let you play around a little bit. So
They're not timid.
yeah.
Wow. Seriously. And so like the jumping spider, and this isn't something, and we've talked about it on the show now and then, working close to home, but this is honestly truly a highlight of that because I love the jumping spiders. There's, such cute little, and the way they pop around. Tiny
Yeah.
friend of the
Yeah.
big world, July 19th post. But, so yeah, you're just out looking and finding all these marvels. Oh, this bird season, if I go back, I see lots of birds. But even
Yeah, I think that's one thing. When you're out looking for the birds, you're looking up. When
mm,
you're out for macro, you're looking down.
okay.
And the world of insects is just so incredible. If you could just sit in just like a little bush of flowers and look on the branches and the flower top, you just start to see things. And then the more you look, it's almost like you train your eye. It's just fascinating. I just love it.
I see that. Yeah, and it's. I mean, you can't wrap your head around what's out there for insects. I mean, the
Mm-mm.
buffalo tree hopper. That's one cool looking bug, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I think it's marvelous,
The
and
varieties,
Well, thank
the,
you.
the variety is really wild. Yeah, I mean, there's bugs on your page I've never even heard of, let alone seen a photo of or anything else. Which is really kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what a
it's
great
crazy.
what a great way to learn natural history,
Hmm.
right? See
Yeah.
it, photograph it, look it up, learn what it does, what it's about.
Yeah.
I mean, there's beautiful red fox. There's all kinds of things on here. Um, and you have, just for those that will have seen your page and loved it, you have another page as well.
Yes. I've dedicated another page for flowers and just other different photography genres that don't really fit on my bird wildlife macro page, I guess you could say. But yeah, I've gotten into some of the flowers, um, just in like native plants that are
Hmm.
around, and the details of those are just incredible. And I mean, you don't normally notice them until you take a picture, and then you bring that picture up, and you're like, wow, there's so much detail to these flowers. Yeah, it's just insane. And like I said before, you can do this in your own backyard. You just go and get some
Hmm.
flowers. I mean, I don't have a backyard. I have a balcony, but even for my balcony gardens, I'll plant stuff. Um, like basil. I won't let them to go to seed, but then as the season ends, I just let them flower, and then I get bees on my balcony. I get hoverflies on my balcony. Yeah, and ladybugs. It's really neat. Jumping spiders. So I literally don't have to leave the house for photography. Yeah, it's
And
fun.
that page is ON_explored for Ontario Explored, but it's worth seeing. I encourage our listeners to check it out because of the mushrooms on there too, and the
Oh, yeah.
compositions with your flowers. The Eastern red columbine in the spring, one of the most majestic flowers in the Northeast. Trilliums. It's a wonderful variety and composition. So I wanted to highlight that in addition to your more popular page because again the macro and the floral work, the horticultural work is, and there's even horses on there, is beautiful and worth checking out.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, it's fungi season too. Now that the cooler weather's coming in and the rain, and yeah, you get out into those forests and just start looking. You just find another world of that. I'm excited for that too.
Do you gather them as you photograph them, or do you just photograph them?
I don't gather. No, I don't know enough.
Ah,
No, and I think I would only forage if I was with someone that was really
in
good
tune
at
with
it
it,
or
right?
understood it. Yeah, there's just so many so many mushrooms out there that are questionable, so but they're so neat.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Notice that
just
on that unexplored page, it's incredible. Some of the detail in the under, like the under, I don't know what you'd call it, the undercarriage of the mushroom. Some of the details and lines and colors and yeah. Anyways, the underside. There you go. Like for example, the mock oyster or the orange oyster mushrooms. Just a lot of
Yeah.
color and a lot of detail. But anyways, yeah, you got a neat eye. You got a neat eye for trying to capture those little details. And what's funny, we've talked about it before, but how many people miss all the beauty of those little details and the little things, by like you said, looking down versus looking up, right? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
guilty of it all the time. I'm sure I walk right past some incredible opportunities, but it's just in that smaller world, and I'm not focused on it. So really,
Yeah.
really neat.
I Yeah, thank you. I think for me, I treasure my moments, not that nobody else does, but when I go out into the forest, I always take my kids with me. So I'll get them searching. And a lot of the times they'll see it before I do, where they're like,
Right.
come and look at this. So I try and not only am I getting the escape for myself and getting that photography therapy in, nature therapy as well. But yeah, teaching my kids, we're learning. I'm learning too. They're learning, and they have that keen eye where they'll find stuff for me to photograph. And it's been a couple years now where we will go out and same thing as the insects. We'll find some fungus or mushrooms or mycelium, and yeah, just come home and look at the pictures and try and learn those whether they're edible or not. We don't taste them or anything, but we've learned about the gills underneath. Yeah, it's just
Mm.
it's so much fun just to learn, and
Yeah.
try and keep
Yeah.
things exciting with
And,
photography. That's usually what I'll do too. Is I just switch it up. If if something gets dry with the birds, I'll go to insects or flowers. Yeah, so it's just a nice variety to keep going.
and bringing the kids along with you too. It's a really good way to spend quality time and keep the kids from wanting to have their faces in a tablet or a phone too. See, it's some to teach our kids to appreciate those things at an early age is, I think, pretty important, and a lot of people miss that opportunity. So
Yeah, it's been a big important thing for my husband and I just to have them outside since my oldest kid was born. He's been outside. My youngest doesn't love it as much, but he still comes along, and I will never leave home without my camera. That's the one thing. Sometimes I'll bring them both, the macro and the telephoto. It's like, what am I going to see? I always have that fear of missing out. If I don't bring one, I'm going to see, the bird of my dreams. Or if I bring my telephoto, I don't see anything, but I'll see a whole bunch of, really interesting macro shots. And I should mention that was one thing before I bought my macro lens, I used my telephoto a lot for macro, for butterflies that I couldn't get close to, which is also another, good thing. Because, some of them, they don't want you near them.
Mm.
But yeah, telephoto macro is fun too.
Well, I think it's great that you're inspiring the love of nature with your children. I mean, just the exposure will do that. And then sharing the moment and then researching it when you get back and talking about what was cool about whatever it might have been, whether it's fungi or a bird or an insect, will just, create that interest in them, highly likely. So that's wonderful. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
As a dad
thank
and a
you.
grandparent, I mean, that's what that's one of the best things we can do, right? Is inspire young people to care about nature and this and recognize the diversity of life on this planet. And honestly, you do that because you've got everything from mammals, like the gamut of subject matter that catches your eye is wonderful, and it's not um, biased toward
Mm-hmm.
any one category, and it's wonderful that way.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. I think I've often thought, what do I do with my Instagram page and my photography? And that's one of the things I'm really hoping to strive for, is just to, show the beauty of bees, pollinators, with everything that's happening with monarchs. They're in decline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just to show the photography and the work and the beauty of them, in hopes of people, even if you just change one person, where you get them to go out and plant some things, and, you know, just to kind of help them out. So that's what I'm hoping to do with my photography, especially with the insects and the pollinators. Yeah, so much so that I've gone back to school for horticulture, because I want to learn more about, just diversity and plants to plant to help pollinators. And so it's just been, photography has been a huge thing for me, like life changing.
Mm.
So yeah.
That's cool. And then you learn what plants to plant, then you can get the right variety there, right there in your backyard, and you really don't have to go anywhere. You'll have
Not that I don't like to leave my house. I love to
right,
leave my
right,
house. I would love to travel, and we
yeah.
do travel. But yeah, actually, I should talk about, macro got really big for me when COVID hit.
Hmm.
We weren't able to go anywhere, and I thought, well, I don't see birds on my balcony, or I don't see a lot of birds, and we weren't allowed to leave. So it's like, how can I change this? How can I switch up my photography? So that's when I really pulled the trigger and went and got the macro lens. When things started to slowly open up, and it was amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So
Nice little blessing in disguise there for you, huh?
yeah, absolutely.
Well, you said you do travel some, and not to change subjects too much, but
Mhm.
if you do you have a species or a place or a location that if you really were going to commit to a location to go photograph something, have you thought about that? Do you have like a your favorite destination, a bucket list location that you just really would love to go photograph, or species, or whatever it might be?
I have actually, and this year I've been thinking really hard about that. I do love the North. Um, I've been as far as, yay. This year we went up to Kirkland Lake, which is, as far north as I've been. Um, and we just have that bug to go farther north, or even Alaska, Yukon, somewhere cold, cold. But my species would be the caribou.
Oh, nice.
I would love to photograph a caribou.
Lisa, I know somebody.
Who could that be?
Could that be you, Mark?
You can't see it on the vertical. But yeah, the caribou behind me. Yeah, caribou. Love them totally. We actually fly out the day after tomorrow to spend 3 weeks with caribou.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, sorry to say. But here's the difference is our wonderful children are growing up, and we have the ability to travel more now. So it could be in the books for you. And honestly, though, before that, I traveled with my kids. I take them on trips to experience the North, caribou country, and so on. So those are cherished memories for sure. But yeah, caribou and their landscape. It's a unique
Mm-hmm.
experience. So yeah, I
Yeah.
did some 3 weeks ago too, but that was in Alaska, and we fly out on the day after tomorrow to Newfoundland. So different subspecies, but very similar. I mean, they're still caribou and amazing landscape. So yeah, I highly encourage it because it's for somebody like you that has an eye for so much of the nature around you. The caribou will move you immensely. You really fall in love with the species because of the herd dynamics and the majesty of the bulls, and then the mothering of the cows, the females, and the cuteness and playfulness of the calves. All of that dynamic is unfolding around you, but the world they live in is different from what we are used to day on the tundra. The color of the lichens and the ptarmigan. There's all kinds of other elements. This scent that comes up when you walk on the tundra or sit or lay down to take a break. The aromatherapy of that is just, I wish I could bottle it. I mean, if we could bottle and sell that scent. I mean, not that I want to take it from there, but being there is I just can't breathe it in enough in that element. So when the opportunity is there, you should go and try that. I mean, it's different for everybody, but all of the trips I've done for the far north and caribou are different. Even revisiting the same destination is different time and again. The animals are
Mm-hmm.
different, the movements are different, the weather's different, the seasonality can even shift a week or two. From year to year. So there's a lot to explore that I think between your telephoto and your macro, you wouldn't know where to start, which is great,
Yeah.
right? The thrill of that.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that because I can see how I can almost I feel like I'm there, when you're talking about the scents and the lichen. And I've been seeing some really interesting images recently on social media of, the tundra and the colors. And I think it would bring me to tears if I saw a caribou. It would.
And that's fine. Emotion
Yeah.
with so many of these experiences is to feel that is whole, right? I mean,
Yeah.
the encounters that we have, and it's funny. Right before the podcast tonight, my wife and I were talking, and I showed her a clip. It's going to be on our Beyond the Wild podcast Instagram because I was having fun with Ron a little bit on it. But I finished the clip by saying how grateful I was for the experience. She says, "You're using that word more often than I used to."
Mm.
And
Mm.
it's, there are times I could, I don't mind saying it. I could come to tears after
Mhm.
an experience. We had one with bighorn sheep this week that was very magical. And I never expected it to be like that. And at the end of it, after 3 or so hours, it was, and walking down the mountainside was just a blessing, right? And all of these, not every day as a wildlife photographer presents these, but when they do come to fruition, it it is that meaningful, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so caribou, yeah. My wife loves humpback whales. When we were in Australia visiting our daughter uh, earlier this summer, we went out on that whale trip, and tears came to her eyes when she saw the first whale. And it's yeah, it's meaningful, and it should be,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
We do
Yeah.
this
It should
because we
be.
we love these elements, and the more we're exposed to it, I think it only broadens our appreciation of this
Hmm.
diversity and the interconnectedness of it all. And to be there is us. I love sharing that the most with people, to see the delight in their eyes after an experience like that, and but they're out there to be had. And as you and delighted to have you on today's episode because you find it It doesn't always have to be this way, but you can find it
Mhm.
in your backyard, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Hmm.
you'll feel the same power when you get to experience caribou when that happens, and that's great, right?
Hmm.
Let it happen. But to see your love of the diversity close to home is something. It's a place where everybody should try and start that, because it's right there. It really is. Just returning today after being away for a month, there are mushrooms in the backyard. The seasonalities change. The birds are different. There's so much. We couldn't sit down for the day and absorb all the changes just by observing, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I encourage you, and obviously look forward to seeing what you create image wise going forward too.
Thank you.
It's funny, Mark. You just made me think of something real quick, and I think it's just important for all of us to keep a perspective on. And it hit me really, really hard this last week. It was kind of a slow, not to get too much into, it was a slow elk rut for me. Just from the amount of images, opportunities I was getting, and as I was sitting there by the meadow one morning, it just dawned on me, like, again, it's a good reminder how fortunate we are to just be able even to do this and to have these experiences and to be there and to be out there hearing the elk rut, hearing the elk bugle, smelling the smells, having those experiences, watching the herd dynamics, even if I'm not getting images, to be
Hmm.
there and have that experience and just be out in nature. We're so fortunate. And, it's funny that, Pilly called you out on your saying that grateful thing more and more. And I think it's important for us to all have that perspective and to think about those things and not get caught up in like, oh, I got to get all the images. I got to get all the images. And it's in all fairness, it's easier once you've had a few seasons under your belt and you've gotten a collection of images to be able to just say, if I don't get the images, not a big deal. But, still, even if you are just getting into it, and don't lose sight of that, right? Don't lose sight of that perspective, I guess. It was a good reminder for me. So,
Yeah, I'm reminded of that quite frequently, and I appreciate that. Yeah, I've put the camera down, or even sometimes just not gone with the camera, just to not have that pressure and just to be present and smell
right.
the smells, and
Yep.
just take in that fresh air. And yeah, I think when you don't have the pressure, it's just easier to enjoy.
Yep. That's a great word, present. Yeah, just be present.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, and that's the joy of this. We are, because there's so much to watch and be aware of: where we walk, how we carry our camera, what the animal's doing, what the weather's doing. We're forced to be in the present. It's one of the healthiest mindsets to be in. So when you do go to the tundra, look up what Labrador tea looks like. And when you
Oh,
get
okay.
there, find Labrador tea. It's a low plant on the ground. Pick a sprig of it. It's all over the place. It carpets the landscape, and crunch it up in your hands and smell it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's amazing. Something else I do on trips that I encourage people who care about this planet is I pick up garbage or things that I see that shouldn't be in the landscape. And when I do it, I say karma, in hopes that it brings good luck for future trips, because I'm caring about the environment.
Hmm.
And when I leave, this will sound emotional too. After an experience like that, I thank the animals. I say a gesture toward them, because of what they did to make that day happen, and to shared space. It's I've always viewed it that we're all on this planet. We're all animals on this planet. We're different species. Our species has evolved to be urban driven, and that's people who are listening to this podcast and are nature photographers. May live in urban cities, and that's obviously totally fine. But we have a connection with nature, and are part of that, part of this planet, and to be immersed in it when we get in wild places with wild animals and have the ability to share the experiences there, whether we get great images or not, as Jason pointed out. It's something to be very grateful for. And there's that word again. And and relish it. Because and the other thing in the podcast, and Jason's been great at pointing this out over the years too, is that some things that we not to take for granted is that the places that become our favorites to travel to will necessarily be the same year after year, right? Things change. So take it in and enjoy the present, as Lisa said, and be there. And yeah, so a lot of meaningfulness. Love it.
I do love that. Yeah.
So is there anything else you'd like to cover as far as your photography or anything that you'd like to direct people's attention to on the podcast today?
Yeah, I think I just want people to just enjoy what they shoot. Just love what you shoot. Don't put a lot of pressure. Go out with an open mind. We don't always get the images. Like Jason said, so many times you go out. I've gone out, haven't gotten any images, and I'm okay with that now. I'm really okay with that. And I just want people to just educate yourself on the things that you do find, like your subjects, because I find if you educate yourself on those subjects, your chances of getting images, maybe better images or the images that people are striving for, with you learning about different species. And yeah, like Mark, pick up the garbage. I always think, if everybody just picked up a little bit of garbage, there would not be a lot of garbage around. We do the same thing when we go hiking. We'll try and pick up the garbage as well, just to keep it clean.
Yeah. Yeah, imagine
Keep
if
it clean
everybody
for
did
our
that, right?
subjects.
Yeah. I saw that. I was kind of stalking a couple of your older stories, Lisa, and saw the bucket of trash in one of them there, and it made me think of that. Yeah. But,
yes, that was the beach, and we didn't walk very far down the beach when we filled that bucket. Which, yeah,
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 that's tough.
And fishing line. There's lots of fishing line.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of fishing line. We pick up fishing line all the time.
I don't know what it is about anglers that think that stuff's like biodegradable or something. I don't know, but they just snip it and leave it, But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shorelines are tough. There's a lot that gets washed up on shorelines, right? And it's
true.
Yeah.
It's there are friends of mine that work in different environmental conservation organizations, and shoreline cleanup is a big deal. And there's a lot to recover that way, and we devote some time to it, especially my wife each year. And it's amazing the things that are collected and the things that animals get into. I've got videos that nothing severe came of it, but that you see them playing with or chewing on, or so plastics are a big thing. But the shore, the boats, there's a lot of motion, right? Things happen. They're out in storms, so it's nice when communities get together and as a collective do that. Then it can make a big difference and is worthwhile doing for all of the species involved. But
real quick before I let Mark kind of wrap things up, I do have another question for you, real quick. And we've kind of gotten away from asking this, but I really like this question. Do you have a favorite outdoor experience? Doesn't have to be with a camera. Doesn't have to be taking photos. It could be just being, with somebody special or whatever it might be. What is your favorite outdoor experience?
That's a hard one. It most definitely with my kids. I didn't really mention it, but we were out in Alberta this year. We went out there for a family wedding, and we were in the area that the wedding was happening. And then we took off into the mountains. So we ended up going into Banff, and we stayed in Banff for a few days, but kind of ventured out. And I'd have to say my favorite experience was having my kids see the Rockies for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty cool experience for me, I've seen them once before. My husband had never seen them, but yeah, just to see my kids' eyes light up when they,
the shock
saw
and
those
awe of the
big
experience.
mountains.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd have to say that one was probably my big highlight from this year. Yeah.
That's cool.
Anything to do with them experiencing something new and just seeing their wonder and excitement is good for me.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So thank you, Lisa. It's been wonderful to hear your thought process and your creative process to create the variety of images that you do. And so we'll have, if you watch on YouTube, I haven't said this, Lisa, but I'm hoping you'll share. We typically share images as we talk about them on YouTube, low resolution,
Okay.
so people can see them there.
Okay.
Follow along with the conversation. If there's any video that way too, that's always great. And I want to thank our sponsors, pictureline.com in Salt Lake City, Utah, and Canon USA for supporting our podcast and helping us to continue to put this great show out for everybody's listening and viewing enjoyment. We love doing it. Thank you for following along. Thank you for sharing information about our show to people who may be interested that might not already know about it. I had fun the past month giving out stickers and out on the trail, and we'll continue doing that. But thanks for sharing the love, everybody. Lisa, thank you for being on today's show, and it's been wonderful to get to know you a bit better and meet the person behind those fantastic images that really are a marvel at close to home photography and more. And there'll be an upcoming episode for those of you out there who have been wondering about Ron and Jason's experience with their new tools, the Canon R5 Mark IIs. I believe the guys have had a few weeks in the field and will be sharing their insights in an upcoming episode in the very near future. So stay tuned and watch for that. On YouTube, our producer, Jason Griffiths, has been putting together shorts, and there's more content on our YouTube channel. So much appreciated for those subscribers. It's free. Get on board, subscribe, and give us a thumbs up for that stuff. It helps with traction as well. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. Jason, Lisa, thank you both. It's always
Thank you
great.
very much.
Very nice to meet you, Lisa. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate you.
You as well.
Likewise. Take care, everybody. Until the next episode, have fun out there. That's a wrap for another episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors, pictureline.com, your online source for everything photography, and Canon USA. Follow us on Instagram at Beyond the Wild Podcast, and make sure to check out our website at beyondthewildpodcast.com for additional show notes, information, and photographs for all of our episodes. You can watch our podcast on YouTube, where we'll include video and photo content, and subscribe. We welcome your comments, questions, and feedback on all of our social media platforms. We hope that you enjoyed this episode of Beyond the Wild podcast. Until next time, embrace adventure in the great outdoors with a camera in hand.